How is it going? Whoops. I'm in the wrong spot. So, welcome if you're watching on X, Facebook, or YouTube. And welcome to Instagram. I'm Evan Baumgardner, and welcome to the Hypnotic Sunday service. And today, I'm going to talk about why distractions and self medication actually makes your anxiety worse and what you can do about that. So, they say you never forget your first. And I will definitely never forget my first panic attack. And it came completely out of nowhere. At that point, I didn't know what a panic attack was. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know anxiety disorders were a thing. And I'm just going about my business, and next thing I know, I'm having to pull my car over, and this was in the middle dead of winter in Minnesota. So it's freezing cold out, snow everywhere. I'm overheating, I'm sweating, I'm shaking. I pull over, I just start puking out the door. I have no idea what's wrong. I just knew I had to get home right then. So I turn around and I head right back, and I just stayed there like that for days. I've just no idea what was going on. And the only thing I knew was that was absolutely miserable, and I never want to experience it again. And I would notice whenever that feeling came up, I would try to find some way to distract myself, to stay away from it. And these are stories that we hear a lot. When people are dealing with anxiety, there's a lot of self-medication involved. Whether that's, oh, I'm gonna drink and that'll make it go away. I'm gonna smoke some weed and that will calm me down. That will help my anxiety. But I want to ask you, does it really? I don't think so. Right? My belief is no, it doesn't. It actually makes it worse. Might get some temporary relief, but you're not actually confronting the problem. You are pushing it down. You're looking away from it. You're not facing the challenge in front of you. And I know I spent a long time doing that, thinking, oh, well, this makes it stop, only to have it come back and just get a lot worse. And that's because I wasn't confronting it, and I didn't really start putting it together until years later. And this is at what point when I first got a hold of it was when I moved to Seattle. I drove out and I had my cat in the car. And now before I had a panic attack, I would go off, I would just do whatever. I didn't worry about things the way I did with anxiety. And if there was something I wanted to do, I would just go do it. And no problems until all of a sudden there was, right? And I couldn't figure out why that was. I mean, at the end of the day, that doesn't matter, like what happened or why it became that way. It was how do I deal with it? And I was treating it like something I had to fight. Like this was a sickness, a cold, a fever that you had to fight through and break and get through. But anxiety is a part of us. We're hardwired to feel it. It's natural. It's there to help us survive. It keeps us out of danger, right? There is a beneficial purpose to it. That's why we experience it. But that can get a little haywire. And we can get it back under control naturally. That's the important thing. But we have to look at it. We have to accept that it's happening. And if we're like, oh, I'm feeling really anxious, I'm gonna have a few drinks and then I'll loosen up. We're not dealing with it. We're pushing it down. And then when that wears off, it comes back up. And this was something I noticed, like I'd made peace with it for years, so I thought. I was still going out, okay, if I felt anxious, have a few drinks and it goes away, but thinking that I had it under control. Then when I had Bell's palsy and that turned into synkinesis, all the anxiety I had buried down came rushing right back. And at that point, it was completely unbearable, worse than it had ever been. And I remember I would go out and try to go out. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna have a few drinks to make this feeling stop, right? Or like friends would be like, oh, smoke some weed. That helps with anxiety. All right, I'll give it a go. No, it didn't. It made it worse. I'm like, why did I feel worse? And this would happen even after one drink, where the anxiety would come up. And I thought back to when I moved to Seattle, and my cat, he was a lot like me. He was an indoor outdoor cat. He liked to just do his thing, right? And one thing he was not going to be happy about was being in the car all the way out here and not being able to go do his thing. And the vet gave me tranquilizers for him. This will help keep him calm on the drive. So day one, give him tranquilizer. Okay, I'll keep him calm. Poor guy, the entire time, just meow, 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 just crying. And I felt really bad for him. He was hating it. He was absolutely miserable. And then when that wore off, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not giving him any more. He still hated it. He still was not a happy camper, but he was a lot calmer than he was with the tranquilizers. And I wondered, why is that? And when I was in my deepest period of anxiety after Bell's palsy, when I was agoraphobic, and these old things I would use to push it down didn't work. In fact, they seemed to make it worse. I'm like, why is that? Why is this not calming me down? Why does it seem to be making it worse? And I remember my cat. Now, when we think of cats, they're agile. They move. They run. And that's how they get out of danger. That's how they survive. They're relying on their motor skills. If if you give a cat a tranquilizer and he gets stoned, what does that do to his motor skills? What does that do to his perception of things, of the world around him? Does it calm him down? Or does it stress him out more because now his senses are all fucked up and it's hard to discern what's going on, let alone make his body do what he needs it to do to keep himself safe? So really that becomes a more stressful situation. It creates more anxiety. It doesn't just push it down at that point. It's adding an extra layer on top of it. So if you go out, you're like, oh well, I feel anxious, I'm going to smoke some weed, I'm going to have a few drinks, and then I'll be calm. You're just adding on to it, and sooner or later that's going to come back and bite you in the ass, one way or another. It doesn't lead to anything good. You have to make peace with the anxiety. You have to accept that it's happening. You have to accept that it's part of you and know that you can control it, that you can get things flowing again. So anytime you're under stress, it isn't firing off all the way to 11, right? It's at the reasonable number that it should be at. And that's where hypnosis comes in. And that was such a powerful thing for me to be able to learn to ground it out, to take control of it, to accept that it was happening and then let it go. And now I'm so far away from where I was. Like, the idea of having a panic attack is just an alien concept to me. I know it happened. I know I went through a lot of hell as a result of that. And I made a lot of mistakes as a result of that. And now, like, okay, will that ever happen again? Because anxiety is really, it's projecting into the future. It's worrying about it. It's worrying about imagining a million things that may or may not happen. And when we do that, because our subconscious doesn't understand the difference between what's real and what's imaginary, it just thinks, oh, you're imagining this, so you must want it. And then it brings up those feelings. Then we experience it in our body again as if it's happening when it's not. And that's why when we know it's all in our head, but we can't do anything about it, we still feel it in our body. Why is that? Well, we're asking for it because we're projecting off into the future, into a future that isn't going to happen. It's completely imaginary. But we're experiencing it as if it is because we're worried about it. And now, are there situations that are going to cause me stress I'm not going to be comfortable in? Absolutely. Right? That's life. Yeah, same as it's always been. But do I have that same sense of dread in it? No, I don't. And if I ever do, I know to stop and ask myself, well, what is this? Where is this coming from? And listen to it and then go, what are you saying to me? Is this appropriate? No. Okay. I'm gonna flip that switch to off now because I don't need it. Or I'm gonna go, okay, this is valid. And then I'm gonna take action and do something about it. And that's what hypnosis helped me really gain control of. Nothing else worked. And everything, the one thing that did was Xanax seemed to help. So I thought, but again, I was just pushing it down. I was using it. Oh, this is happening. My body's out of control. That calms the body down, but it doesn't get to the cause. And we don't need to know like the why. We just need to adjust the behavior and adjust our perception of what's happening. And that's why I became a hypnotist. So I can help people with that. So nobody has to experience what I experienced. And if I have the ability to help anybody with that, then I know I'm right where I'm supposed to be. That is why I do what I do. And that's why I love my job, is seeing those changes happen in people. So if you're struggling with anxiety, if you're ready to take back control of your life, go to ebhypno.com, book a discovery call with me. Let's have a talk about what's going on and see if I can help you. And don't forget to like, follow, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of this. Let me know if you've noticed that these self-medication strategies, that distracting yourself with something else, has really just made your anxiety worse. So if that's you, leave a comment, let me know. And I hope you guys have a great week. And join me again tomorrow for MK Monday. And take care. I'll be seeing you.